The tension in Sterling and Rose's executive boardroom could have cut diamonds. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of our Manhattan headquarters, the city sparkled like the precious gems we built our reputation on. But today that sparkle felt more like shattered glass. My name is Emma Rose, and at 34, I was about to be publicly executed from the luxury jewelry empire I'd helped build over the last decade. Not that my mother-in-law, Victoria Sterling, would ever acknowledge my contributions. The evidence is irrefutable, Victoria declared, her perfectly manicured hand gesturing to the financial reports spread across the mahogany table. Over $3 million in inventory discrepancies under Emma's supervision. Missing diamonds. Unauthorized transactions. I sat quietly, watching the faces around the table. The board members, mostly Victoria's longtime friends, avoided my gaze. My husband James, Victoria's only son, stared at his hands, his wedding ring catching the light. The same ring I'd personally designed when we merged our family's jewelry businesses through marriage 7 years ago. And most damning, Victoria continued, her voice dripping with artificial concern. Suspicious transfers to a Swiss bank account. I thought about the real documentation hidden in my personal safe, the actual transaction records, the evidence I'd spent months collecting. Victoria had no idea that her own greed had laid the perfect trap. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Robert Phillips, our CFO and Victoria's closest ally, asked with barely concealed satisfaction. I opened my laptop pretending to review the doctored reports they presented. In reality, I was sending a pre-written email to Marcus Chen at Deloitte's Forensic Accounting Division, the one who'd been quietly building a case for the past 6 months. Only that it seems you've made up your minds, I replied calmly. Though I'm curious about one thing, have you shared these findings with our partners at the Swiss National Bank? Victoria's perfectly Botox forehead creased slightly. That's not necessary. This is a family matter. Of course it was. Because the Swiss National Bank's scheduled audit would reveal something very different from Victoria's carefully crafted narrative. The vote will now commence, Robert announced. As per company bylaws, a 2/3 majority is required to remove an executive officer. I watched as hands raised around the table, remembering my father's words when I first joined the jewelry business. In this industry, trust isn't just about relationships, it's about documentation. Every diamond, every transaction, every decision leaves a trail. With 11 votes in favor and 1 abstention, Robert declared, glancing at James, Emma Rose is hereby terminated from her position as Chief Operating Officer of Sterling and Rose, effective immediately. Victoria didn't even try to hide her triumph. Security will escort you out. And don't think about taking anything. All your files are now company property. I gathered my belongings with deliberate calm. They were so focused on their victory, they hadn't noticed what I hadn't brought to the meeting. No external drives. No documents. Nothing that would alert them to what was coming. One small detail, I said, pausing at the door. The quarterly audit from the Swiss National Bank is scheduled for Monday. I usually handle those. We're quite capable of managing our own affairs, Victoria snapped. I nodded, thinking of the evidence safely stored with 3 different law firms. Of course. Though you might want to review the Antwerp diamond shipments from last quarter, particularly the ones that never quite made it to our inventory. Victoria's face remained impassive, but her fingers tightened on her Hermes scarf. Are you threatening me? Not at all. Just looking out for the family business, one last time. The elevator ride to my office felt like descending through the stages of grief, except I wasn't grieving. Every step had been calculated, every reaction anticipated. My phone buzzed, Marcus confirming receipt of my signal. Teams ready in Zurich, Antwerp, and New York, waiting for your green light. I looked around my office at the awards Sterling and Rose had won under my leadership. Best Innovation in Jewelry Design, Excellence in Corporate Governance, Industry Leader in Ethical Sourcing. Victoria had accepted every award herself, of course. Another message, this one from Diana Wong, our head of design. All files secured. Original documentation safe. The team stands with you. Victoria had never understood why I spent so much time with our designers and craftspeople, learning their processes, earning their trust. She called it getting your hands dirty. I called it building loyalty. A final message went out to 20 different recipients across 3 continents, Key people in our supply chain who knew the truth about Victoria's cost-saving measures. Execute Protocol Diamond. Within hours, secured servers would receive encrypted files. Security cameras would preserve unedited footage. Most importantly, every fraudulent transaction, every manipulated inventory record, every hidden account would be exposed. As I walked past our flagship store's window displays, I paused to admire the Legacy Collection, my final design series for Sterling and Rose. Each piece told a story of heritage and tradition. Victoria had tried to cut corners even there, substituting lower-grade diamonds, but I caught it in time. James called as I reached my car. "Emma, I'm sorry. I should have." "Save it," I interrupted quietly. "Just make sure you're in the office on Monday. You'll want to see this." "See what?" "Emma, what are you planning?" "Ask your mother about the Antwerp shipments. Ask her about the real reason we switched suppliers. Better yet, ask her about account number 2,547,839 at Credit Suisse." Silence. "Then, what have you done?" "Nothing yet. But Monday's going to be very interesting." As I drove home, I thought about my father's other piece of advice. In the jewelry business, reputation is everything. Once lost, no amount of diamonds can buy it back. Victoria thought she orchestrated the perfect coup, but she'd forgotten something crucial about family businesses. Sometimes the most dangerous person is the one who knows where all the real jewels are buried. And I had documented every single one. The weekend passed in a calculated dance of international coordination. While Victoria celebrated her victory at her Hamptons estate, I orchestrated the endgame from my home office, surrounded by monitors tracking activities across 3 continents. Diana's messages kept coming. Victoria's trying to access the design vault. They're rushing to modify inventory records. Robert's been in the office all weekend. I smiled, knowing every desperate attempt to cover their tracks was being documented. My phone buzzed with an update from Marcus, Swiss team in position. Antwerp documents secured. New York audit team ready. Monday morning arrived with the crisp clarity of a flawless diamond. I walked into Sterling and Rose's headquarters at precisely 8:45 a.m., accompanied by Marcus Chen and 2 representatives from the Swiss National Bank's audit division. "Mrs. Rose," the security guard stuttered. "We were told." "They're with me," I interrupted, holding up my still active security badge. Victoria had been too busy celebrating to handle such details. "Emma," Victoria's voice cracked through the lobby. "You have no authority to be here," actually said Werner Schmidt, the lead Swiss auditor. Mrs. Rose's presence was specifically requested, given her role in identifying certain irregularities in international transactions. Victoria's perfectly composed face flickered. Behind her, Robert Phillips appeared, looking like he hadn't slept in days. "This way," I said to the audit team. "We should start with the Antwerp shipping records." The next 4 hours systematically dismantled Victoria's carefully constructed fraud. The missing diamonds hadn't disappeared under my supervision. They'd been deliberately misdirected through a complex network of shell companies, all leading back to private accounts controlled by Victoria and Robert. "The scale of the fraud is remarkable," Marcus commented, reviewing transaction records. "Over $50 million in diamonds diverted over the past 3 years. Premium stones replaced with lower-grade substitutes. False certification documents." "That's absurd," Victoria declared, but her hand trembled as she reached for her water glass. "These records are clearly fabricated." "Actually," Werner interrupted, "these records match perfectly with our banking documentation. Particularly interesting is account number 2,547,839 at Credit Suisse. Would you care to explain the deposits?" James burst into the conference room, his face ashen. "Mother, what have you done?" I opened my laptop, displaying the evidence I gathered. "Your mother found a clever way to increase profits. Premium diamonds would be ordered and paid for, but cheaper substitutes would be used in our pieces. The real diamonds would be resold through unofficial channels, with the profits going to private accounts." "You can't prove," Robert began. "Can I?" I pulled up more documents. Every substitution was documented by our quality control team. Every diverted shipment tracked. Every false certification recorded. I even have footage from our workshop security cameras showing the substitutions taking place. Diana entered with another stack of evidence. The design team kept our own records, she said. We knew something was wrong when the diamonds didn't match our specifications. Victoria's composure finally cracked. You planned this. All of it. No, Victoria, you planned this. I just made sure there was a record of everything you did. Every decision that put profit above integrity. Every action that risked our company's reputation. The company is mine, she snarled. I built this empire. Actually, Marcus interjected, according to these ownership documents, it's a publicly traded company with strict corporate governance requirements. Requirements that have been severely violated. The next few hours brought waves of revelations. The Swiss National Bank froze multiple accounts. Interpol was notified of the international fraud aspects. The board was hastily reconvened. The situation is unprecedented, our corporate counsel explained to the stunned board members. The evidence of fraud is overwhelming. The company's reputation can be salvaged, I interrupted, but only with immediate action and complete transparency. Victoria and Robert were suspended pending criminal investigation. The board, facing potential liability themselves, voted unanimously to reinstate me as COO with expanded powers to implement reforms. James found me in my office later that evening. You knew, he said quietly. For how long? I suspected when she started changing suppliers without justification. I knew for certain when Diana showed me the diamond substitution records. I paused. The only question was whether you were involved. He shook his head. I trusted her. We all did. Trust without verification is just willful blindness, I replied, quoting my father again. The next months were intense. We implemented new authentication protocols throughout our supply chain. Every diamond was independently certified, every transaction transparently documented. Diana's design team was empowered to maintain strict quality standards. The press coverage evolved from scandal to redemption story. Sterling and Rose emerges stronger after fraud discovery, read one headline. Ethical luxury. How one executive saved a jewelry empire, said another. 6 months later, I stood in our main workshop, watching our artisans at work. The legacy collection had been completely remade, this time with the premium diamonds it deserved. Just like your father would have wanted, Diana said, admiring a particularly intricate piece. Our stock price had initially plunged but recovered as confidence in our new transparency measures grew. More importantly, we were creating pieces we could be proud of again. Last week, a young jewelry designer asked me how to maintain integrity in an industry built on trust. Remember, I told her, sharing my father's wisdom, every diamond tells 2 stories, its own and the story of how it was handled. Make sure both stories can bear scrutiny. Victoria and Robert eventually pleaded guilty to multiple fraud charges. James filed for divorce, unable to reconcile with his mother's betrayal. The Hamptons estate was sold to help pay restitution. As I write this from my office overlooking Fifth Avenue, I can see customers in our flagship store, trusting us once again with their most precious moments. Each piece that leaves our workshops now carries a unique blockchain verification code. My innovation to ensure this never happens again. Sterling and Rose continues to grow, but now with transparency at its core. Because as my father always said, in jewelry, like in life, true value isn't just about what sparkles on the surface, it's about integrity all the way through. Every morning, before the store opens, I inspect our latest pieces just like my father taught me, checking quality, verifying authenticity, ensuring every diamond tells a story we can be proud of. Because sometimes protecting a legacy means being willing to shatter the beautiful illusion to expose the truth beneath. In our case, it wasn't just about jewelry, it was about proving that integrity, once lost, can be restored, but only through unwavering commitment to the truth. The company shines brighter now, but with a different kind of sparkle. Not the false glitter of fraud and deception, but the true brilliance of authentic quality and transparent dealing. And in the end, that authenticity, just like the finest diamond, is both rarer and more valuable than any counterfeit could ever be.